Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to my next part of the R-JTAG tutorial. Sorry for being late, but I have had a lot of problems with this console, because this is a Zephyr and they're pretty hard to glitch sometimes. Also I was very busy at work, but now I'm back with the R-JTAG soldering tutorial. As I said in other videos, you will need to have the R-JTAG kit and soldering equipment. So if you don't have this, then please watch the previous R-JTAG tutorial and there you can see what you need. The soldering layout pictures are in the description, so if you need them, then just go to the description and check them out. And now let's directly start with the first QSB. Okay, so this is the first QSB we will solder onto the mainboard, and basically this QSB powers the R-JTAG chip and gives it some basic information, and it's located left here from the Microsoft Xbox 360 chip, which you can easily find on your mainboard. And here on the top there's a really small soldering point, so basically that is the most challenging thing here on this QSB. And before you place the QSB on the mainboard, you should tin the points on the mainboard. And you should always tin the points before attempting to solder the QSB to the mainboard, and apply a lot of flux, because this makes the whole soldering job a lot easier. You can use liquid flux, or you can also use soldering honey or soldering paste, anything you want to, but be sure to take one which has high quality. And now just take your soldering iron and solder and tin all the points here on the mainboard, and I will now skip through this. Okay, so now it's time to place the QSB on the mainboard, and it's very easy because, as you can see, the pads from the QSB fit the points on the mainboard exactly. And now don't solder all the points, just solder one point, because then you can move the QSB if it's not 100% in the right position. Because there's also one last point on the top of the QSB, and if the QSB is not 100% in the correct position and you solder all the points, then you can't move the QSB anymore. And if the point on the top does not fit the point on the mainboard, you have to get out the QSB once again and replace it, and that really sucks. So make sure that you align the QSB by just soldering one point and then move it until it also fits the point on the top. Okay, so when the QSB is 100% in the correct position, then you can solder all the points, and I will do this here right now. And now here you can see the little point on the mainboard on the top of the QSB, and as I said, it's very little and it's a little bit challenging, so be sure to apply plenty of flux and then just try to apply some solder onto the mainboard or onto the pad and make sure it has a good contact. You can also check the contact if you have a multimeter and then just measure in between the pad and the resistor. Okay, so now here you can see the QSB from the side, and now we have to tin the points which we need to connect to the R-JTAG chip, and here also apply flux if you want to, because it makes it a lot easier. And now you have to tin point E, F, 5 volt and the K point. Now when you have done that, it is time for the next QSB, and now we'll solder in the Nand-x QSB. It's a little bit above the other QSB. You can also see the Microsoft chip here. If you're not sure where this point is, then just check out the pictures in the description. And now once again, apply flux, tin the points on the mainboard, then just put the QSB onto the mainboard and solder only one point. Then you have to maybe correct the position, and when the position is 100% correctly, solder all the other points, and I will do this here right now. When you have soldered in the Nand-x QSB, then it's time to turn the board around and solder in the post-out QSB. And this location is a little bit hard to find, but you can see that there are two holes here in the middle which are for the heatsink mount. And here you can also see the FT points, and those are needed for the post-out QSB. As always, tin the points first and apply a lot of flux because it makes it easier. And those points are very small, so flux also helps that you don't get soldering bridges. And when you have tinned the points, you can place the QSB here on the mainboard and then just solder the left point, then maybe correct the position of the QSB and then solder all the FT points here on the top. Okay, when you have done that, your FT points on the top should look like this, and now 3 soldering points are left, the left capacitor and the right capacitor. The left capacitor has 2 soldering points, one on each side, and the other capacitor only has 1 soldering point here on the top. And when you're done with the post-out QSB, it's time to tin the points for the R-JTAG QSB. Those points are also on the back side on the right, and if you're not sure where those points are, you can find a picture to this in the description. And also for the R-JTAG QSB, there is one really challenging soldering point, which is the trace right over FT2R2. And this is a little tricky because it's not tinned, and don't try to tin it because also with a plenty of flux it's hard to get solder on that little point. Just apply flux and then heat it up for a short time so you won't damage it. And now you can place the R-JTAG QSB on the mainboard. Just make sure that you place it correctly on the mainboard, that you can also solder the FT2R2 point on the top without a problem. As you have may seen in the wiring diagram, there's also a point here on the top which goes to this little resistor, But if you're using the odd clamp fix, like I will do in this video, you don't have to solder this point. You can easily mess this point up, so if you're using odd clamp, like me, don't solder this point. But just to have a complete guide, I will also show you how to solder this. So apply flux and then just heat it up for a really short time, and then you have a good contact. But don't heat it up too long, because then you will wipe the resistor from the board. And now here comes the tricky shit. Now we have to solder the point which goes to the little trace on the mainboard. Be sure to apply a lot of flux and then just heat it up for a really short time and then hope that you have a good contact. So when you're using the odd clamp, you need to tin the point on the top and bridge point 3 and 1. If you don't use the odd clamp, you have to bridge point 2 and 1 and also solder the little resistor right over point 2. Now you can see several switches here on the R-JTAG QSB. The on and off switch needs to be on, the jumper should be on 470 ohms, and the last switch should be in the middle by default. Now it's time to solder the odd clamp cable to the point on the QSB. Remember, this cable is not included, so take your own. One end is soldered to the QSB and the other end is soldered to the right leg of the O2 and 1 transistor on the top. When you're done with that, it should look like this. Make sure that the odd clamp cable is as short as possible. So if it is too long, then unsolder it, cut it and resolder it again. You can tin now the points on the R-JTAG chip. You will need 5 volts, GND, D, E, F and K. 5 volts is red, GND is black, D is blue, E is green, F is brown and K is orange. Now connect the other ends to the QSB. The ground cable goes to the housing of the video output socket, and the blue one goes to the backside of the mainboard. As I said, the blue cable goes to the backside of the board. It should be long enough to go to the CPU reset point on the left. If you want to, you can also use the CPU RST point on the top, which is better in some cases. The wiring diagram can be found in the description. Okay, so we're now done with this soldering job, and before we put everything back together, we will read the NAND of the Xbox 360. But due to time limitations, I will show you this in the next part. So as always guys, thanks for watching, and I hope I see you again in the next part. Bye bye!